Let's implement another pretty common feature on web pages, which is that the navigation bar becomes attached to the top of the page after we scroll to a certain point. And this is called a sticky navigation, and so let's build one for our site. So the effect that I'm talking about is this one. So as we scroll down, once we then reach a certain point, the menu bar here becomes attached to the top of the page. And once again, I'm sure that you have seen this in many pages that you visit. Now let's just check out the HTML here, just to see how this works. So we make this navigation sticky basically by adding this sticky class whenever we reach a certain position. And so this sticky class, as you can see here on the right side, all it does is to set the position to fixed, and it also changes the background color to this transparent. So you see that we can actually see through this navigation a little bit, which gives it a really cool effect. Okay. So sticky navigation. And to implement this, we're going to use the scroll event for now. So there's actually a better way of what we're going to do in this video, but let's start by working with the scroll event now, because sometimes that's good to know as well. So the scroll event is available on window. All right, so not document, but really window.add-event-listener and then scroll. Okay, so this event will be fired off each time that we scroll on our page. Okay. And let's start by taking a look actually at the event, just so you see that it actually fires each time that I'm scrolling. So I just scrolled this little bit and it already created all of these events. So it fired all these times. So the scroll event is not really efficient and usually it should be avoided. But again, for now, let's use that. And now let's start by getting our current scroll position. So let's use window.scroll y, just as we learned before. And so this scroll position here is really on the window object and not at the event. So in the scroll event, this event object here is actually pretty useless. We don't even need it here. Okay, so let's just reload here. And so as we scroll, you see that each time the event is fired, we get the current scroll position. And remember that this is the position basically from the point in the viewport, so this point here, to the very top of the page. And that's why in the beginning we start at 0, because now the visible part of the site is exactly also at the top of the page. Okay, so remember, to make the navigation sticky, we will add that sticky class that I showed you earlier. But now the question is, when exactly should the navigation actually become sticky? Well, it should happen here as soon as we reach the first section. So basically as soon as we reach this position. So this line here marks the beginning of the first section. And so when we reach this position, we want to make the navigation sticky. Now, of course, we're not gonna like hard code the value here. So I could take like 565, but that doesn't work because the size of this element that comes before is actually dependent on the viewport size. So if I do this, then you see that the first section starts way earlier. So like at 300. And so we cannot hard code the value, and therefore we need to calculate it dynamically. So how do we do that? Well, remember that we can determine the position actually of this first section. So let's do that. And I think I already have it selected up here. Yeah, so section 1, which is this one. So we need to do this outside actually of this event handler. So that section 1 dot get bounding client rect, remember. And so let's call this initial coordinates. So just coords. And take a look at it. And so now we get this current top value here. Where is it? Right here. So we get the current top value of this section. And so we can now work with that. And it's even better if we do this when scrolled to the top, because then basically this top position here is all the way from the top of the page all the way here. So all the way to the beginning of that first section. Okay, and so let's now use this value to add our sticky class. So we can say that whenever the window.scroll position in y is greater than the initial coordinates at the top, then we want to add this sticky class. Right? And if not, then we want to remove it. So I can use nav here because I already selected it in the previous lecture. So nav is of course this entire navigation bar that we also worked with in the previous lecture. So remove here. And here indeed we need a new line. And so now that works. And so let's check this here. And wait for it. And indeed, now it's here. So now the sticky class was added because we reached the position in the page which is greater than the distance of this first section from the top. All right. So this works just fine now, but as I mentioned before, this is pretty bad for performance. So using the scroll event for performing a certain action at a certain position of the page is really not the way to go. And again, that's because the scroll event here fires all the time, no matter how small the change is here in the scroll. And so that makes for a pretty bad performance, and especially on mobile. Like on a modern computer, of course, you're not going to notice anything. But if you're using this page maybe on an older smartphone, then it's not going to be so nice. All right. And so in the next video, we're going to look at a better and way more efficient tool, which is the Intersection Observer API.